I won't do it. John Crawford stared at his phone screen where his former classmate's message glowed accusingly. Come on, John. You owe me one from that physics final senior year. William's voice crackled through the speaker. Besides, it's just one evening. John swiveled his ergonomic chair away from his standing desk, gazing out at the San Francisco skyline from his penthouse office. Being CEO of Crawford Tech had its perks, but it also meant people like William felt entitled to ask for favors. That was 10 years ago, John muttered, scrolling through the digital yearbook photos William had sent. And I didn't even know her. Exactly. You didn't know Eliza Chen, but you saw how others treated her. You did nothing. The accusation hung heavy in the air. John clicked through more photos, stopping at one that made his Swilliamac twist. Eliza Chen, senior year, trying to hide behind thick glasses and braces, her shoulders hunched as if to make herself invisible. She's a doctor now, William continued. Pediatric surgeon. Pretty impressive for the girl, everyone called. Don't, John cut him off. We were kids. It was stupid. Then prove you've grown up. Ask her to the alumni ball. John minimized the photos and pulled up Crawford Tech's latest stock prices. She won't say yes. Try anyway. Show her not everyone from back then was terrible. I wasn't terrible to her. No, you were worse. You were indifferent. John's finger hovered over the end call button. Why do you care so much, William? A pause. Because I was one of the worst ones. I'm trying to make things right. By using me? By giving her a chance to show everyone who she really is, and maybe showing you something too. John opened his calendar app. The alumni ball was 6 weeks away. Fine, I'll reach out. But when she says no, this is on you. Deal. William's relief was palpable. Her professional contact is on the alumni website. And John, thank you. After hanging up, John stared at the phone for a long moment before opening his browser. A few clicks brought up Eliza Chen's professional profile at Boston Children's Hospital. The headshot showed a woman in a white coat, still wearing glasses, still with that guarded expression. His fingers moved across the keyboard. Dear Dr. Chen, you may not remember me from Valley High. I'm John Crawford, class of 15. I'm reaching out because our 10-year alumni ball is coming up, and I wondered if you'd consider attending as my guest. He deleted it immediately. Too formal, too fake. He tried again. Eliza, William Martinez suggested I contact you about the upcoming alumni ball. I know high school wasn't the best time, but... Delete. His intercom buzzed. Mr. Crawford, your 2-0 is here. Give me 5 minutes. John took a deep breath and typed one last time. Hi, Eliza. I'm John Crawford from Valley High. Honestly, I'm not sure how to write this email. William put me up to asking you to the alumni ball, but now that I'm typing, I realize how presumptuous this must seem. We never really knew each other in school, and I was part of a crowd that made life harder for you, even if just by standing by. I'd like to attend the ball with you, not out of pity or guilt, but because I think we're both different people now. You've become a successful surgeon, and I'd genuinely like to know your story. Feel free to tell me to get lost. John. Before he could overthink it, he hit send. His 2-eye was halfway through their presentation when his phone buzzed with a notification. One new email from Dr. Eliza Chen. For the first time in years, John Crawford felt his hands shake. Scalpel. Eliza Chen's voice remained steady despite the tension in the operating room. Her team moved with practiced precision as she focused on the tiny face before her. Another cleft palate repair. Another chance to change a child's life. Dr. Chen, heart rate's elevating slightly, the anesthesiologist reported. Expected at this stage. Let's proceed. The familiar rhythm of surgery grounded her, washing away the anxiety that had plagued her since receiving John Crawford's email that morning. Here in the OR, she was just Dr. Chen. No history, no high school trauma, just skilled hands and unwavering focus. 2 hours later, Eliza stripped off her surgical gloves and mask, rolling her shoulders to release the tension. The surgery had been successful, routine even. But her mind kept drifting to that email waiting for response. Another perfect repair, Dr. Lisa Wong, her mentor, commented as they scrubbed out. "You're the best we've got for pediatric facial reconstruction." Eliza managed a small smile. "Just doing my job." Speaking of which, Lisa leaned against the sink. "The hospital board loved your proposal for the new craniofacial center. They're particularly interested in your emphasis on psychological support for patients." "Personal experience helps," Eliza muttered, then immediately regretted it. Lisa's expression softened. "That reminds me, isn't your high school reunion coming up? The nurses were chatting about it since Angela's going too." Eliza dried her hands with more force than necessary. "Got an interesting invitation this morning, actually." "Oh?" "John Crawford wants to take me to the alumni ball." Lisa's eyebrows shot up. "Crawford? The tech guy? He's been in the news lately, something about revolutionary medical software." "That's him." Eliza checked her phone. The email notification still sat there, mocking her. "And this is significant because—" Eliza collapsed onto the break room couch, finally letting exhaustion show. "He was one of the popular kids, never actively cruel, but—" She trailed off, remembering hallways full of whispers and stifled laughter. "Ah," Lisa sat beside her. "And now he wants to play Prince Charming?" "More like William Martinez put him up to it. He said as much in the email." "William Martinez? Wasn't he the one who started the ugly duckling chant at graduation?" "Yeah, that's him." Eliza pulled up the email again. "At least John was honest about it," Lisa read over her shoulder. "Surprisingly genuine for a CEO. But you don't owe them anything, Eliza." "I know." Eliza stood, pacing the small room. "But part of me wants to go, not for them, for me. To show them that you became successful despite them." "No." Eliza stopped at the window, looking out at Boston's skyline. "To show myself I'm not that scared girl anymore. I'm just—" She adjusted her glasses, a nervous habit she'd never shed. "I'm not ready for their judgment again." Her phone buzzed. Another surgery consult. "Sleep on it," Lisa advised. "You've got time to decide." But as Eliza headed to her next patient, an idea began forming. She thought of the masks they sometimes used in reconstructive surgery planning, of the way they let patients see possibilities without fear. During her afternoon rounds, she drafted and deleted 4 different responses to John. Finally, between patient visits, she wrote, "John, I appreciate your honesty about William's involvement. Since we're being honest, I've avoided all alumni events for obvious reasons. However, I have a proposition. I'll attend the ball with you, but on one condition. I'll wear a masquerade mask all evening. No one sees my face until I choose. If that's too weird for you, I understand. Eliza." She hit send before her courage failed, then immediately got called to the ER for a trauma consult. It wasn't until hours later, finishing her notes, that she saw his response. "Intriguing proposition. Can we discuss it over coffee?" Eliza stared at her phone, then at her reflection in the darkened office window. The same glasses, the same orthodontic work she'd needed again in her 20s, but the eyes behind those glasses were different now. She typed, "William Morrow, 7 a.m., Blue Bottle on Congress Street before my first surgery." His response came instantly, "I'll be there." William Martinez stared at his laptop screen, refreshing John's social media profile for the 10th time that evening. No updates, no hints about whether Eliza had responded. "Still obsessing?" his wife Rachel commented, setting a cup of tea beside him. "I'm invested," William corrected, running a hand through his graying hair. At 32, he was too young to look this tired. "This has to work." Rachel perched on the arm of his chair. "You never told me why this matters so much to you." William closed his laptop with a sigh. "Remember that box of old stuff I found when we moved? The one that made you weird for a week?" "Yeah?" "There was a notebook in there from senior year, full of terrible things we planned to do to Eliza Chen at graduation." Rachel's expression darkened. I was the ringleader." The admission felt like swallowing glass. "We were going to humiliate her one last time, make it memorable." "But you didn't?" "No, got cold feet at the last minute. But I never apologized, never made it right." He pulled out his phone, checking for messages again. Did you know she's a pediatric surgeon now? Specializes in reconstructive surgery for kids. Fitting, Rachel murmured. What do you mean? She fixes faces for a living after spending her teenage years being mocked for hers. William's phone buzzed. A text from John. Coffee with Eliza William R.O. morning. Happy? Very? William typed back, then added, Don't screw this up. John's response was immediate. Still don't understand why you care. William started typing several times before settling on, Trust me on this one. Rachel read the exchange over his shoulder. You haven't told him either. Told him what? That I've been anonymously donating to Eliza's pediatric department for the past 5 years, that I follow her research publications, that every time I see a photo of her success, I remember how we treated her. Maybe you should. William shook his head. This isn't about me feeling better. It's about giving her the night we tried to take away. His phone buzzed again. An email from the Alumni Association. The venue wanted final numbers for the ball. As association president, he'd have to start collecting RSVPs soon. You know, Rachel said carefully, playing matchmaker isn't actually making amends. I'm not playing matchmaker. I'm giving them both a chance they never had. John was always different from the rest of us, more focused on his coding than our stupid games. And Eliza, he pulled up her hospital profile. She deserves to walk into that ball on the arm of the most successful guy in our class. And if it backfires? William thought of the notebook, now ash in their fireplace. Then I'll finally tell her everything. About the plan, the donations, all of it. Rachel squeezed his shoulder. You're a good man, William Martinez. No, he corrected. I'm trying to be one. His phone lit up with another text from John. What's her coffee order? William smiled. Some things you have to figure out for yourself. The Blue Bottle coffee shop was nearly empty at 6:55 a.m. when John arrived. He ordered 2 of everything that looked breakfast appropriate, unsure of Eliza's preferences. The barista raised an eyebrow at his excessive order but said nothing. At exactly 7 a.m., the door chimed. Eliza Chen walked in wearing scrubs under a winter coat, her hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. She paused, scanning the room before spotting him. You ordered enough for a surgical team, she commented, sliding into the seat across from him. I wasn't sure what you liked. He pushed the array of pastries toward the middle of the table. I remember you used to bring your own lunch to school because braces made it hard to eat most cafeteria food, she said matter-of-factly, selecting a plain croissant. Still have them, as you can see. Round 2 of orthodontic work. John tried not to stare at the metal brackets. They look professional. You don't have to compliment my braces. She took a sip of coffee. Let's talk about your email. Right. He straightened in his chair. Look, about William. I don't care about William's motivations, she cut in. I care about yours. Why did you actually agree to this? John considered his words carefully. Honestly, at first because William can be persuasive, but after looking you up. You mean after Googling me? After reading about your work, he corrected. I got curious. Pediatric reconstructive surgery is impressive. Eliza broke her croissant into tiny pieces. Is this where you say something about inner beauty being what matters? No. This is where I ask about your masquerade idea. He leaned forward. Why a mask? Because I want one evening where people have to actually talk to me before judging me. She met his eyes. You run a tech company. You must understand the concept of controlling variables. So I'm part of your social experiment, aren't I? Part of yours? The question hung between them. Outside, Boston was waking up, streets filling with commuters. Fair point, John finally said, but if we do this, we need ground rules. Eliza pulled out her phone. I have a surgery in 40 minutes, so let's make this quick. Rule 1. No revealing my identity to anyone at the ball. Agreed. Rule 2. You can't hide in a corner all night. Rule 3. No photos. The Alumni Association will have photographers. Then I leave before the masks come off, she checked the time. Rule 4. If anyone asks, we met again recently at a medical technology conference. Not entirely a lie. I was at MedTech Boston last month. So was I, John realized. Different sessions, obviously. Obviously. Eliza stood, gathering her things. Last rule, this isn't Pretty Woman. I'm not your charity case or your redemption story. Agreed. He stood too. But what is it then? Eliza paused, hand on her bag. It's two adults choosing to face their past on their own terms. She headed for the door, then turned back. Oh, and John? Yeah? Next time, just get black coffee and a plain croissant. Some of us don't like complications with breakfast. After she left, John looked at the untouched spread of pastries, then at his phone where William's latest text glowed. How did it go? She said yes, he typed, but I think we're both in over our heads. William's response came quickly. Good. About time you both learned to swim. 2 weeks after their first meeting, John and Eliza sat in a different coffee shop, this time in the late afternoon. Medical journals were spread across the table between them, alongside printouts of past alumni ball photos. These masks are terrible, Eliza commented, flipping through images from a Venetian-themed fundraiser. They barely cover anything. Would you prefer a full face mask? John asked, not looking up from the medical journal he was pretending to understand. Like Fan William of the opera? I was thinking more detailed than that. She pulled out her tablet, showing him a design. Something like this. The sketch showed an intricate mask covered in delicate metalwork and crystals, extending from forehead to cheekbones. Expensive, he noted. I can afford it. Her tone carried a slight edge. Surgeons make decent money. I didn't mean... I know what you meant. She softened slightly. But this isn't about money, it's about control. John set down the journal. Can I ask you something? Depends on the question. Why agree to this at all? You could have ignored my email, gone on with your life. Eliza was quiet for a moment, stirring her coffee. Do you know what I tell my patients before facial reconstruction? What? That changing their face won't change who they are. It just lets the world see them more clearly. She met his eyes. I'm not hiding behind the mask, John. I'm forcing people to see me clearly for the first time. And what am I supposed to see? That's up to you. She gathered the journals into a neat stack. But first we need to practice. Practice what? Being seen together in public. The ball is in 4 weeks. If we show up having no idea how to act around each other, people will notice. John leaned back. So what do you suggest? Dinner, public places, normal conversations. She checked her calendar. I'm free Thursday evening. You want to practice our dating? I want to practice being comfortable enough around each other that no one questions why you brought me to the ball. She looked up. Unless you're uncomfortable with that? No, it's logical. He pulled out his phone. Thursday works. Where? Somewhere quiet, no chance of running into anyone from Valley High. I know a place in Cambridge, small Italian restaurant. Perfect. She stood, gathering her things. Oh, and John? Yeah? Wear something normal, no $1,000 suits. We're practicing being comfortable, not impressing anyone. As she left, John realized he'd just agreed to fake date someone to practice taking them to a ball where they'd wear a mask. His phone buzzed with a text from William. Any progress? John looked at the medical journals Eliza had left behind, each one containing articles she'd published. It's complicated, he wrote back. William's response was immediate. Isn't that the point? John stared at the message, then at the design of Eliza's mask still displayed on the table. Complicated didn't begin to cover it. You want it by when? The artisan, an elderly woman named Elena, peered at Eliza over half-moon glasses. 3 weeks from today. Eliza held out her tablet showing the design. I know it's rushed, but... Rushed? Elena laughed, taking the tablet. This is impossible. The metalwork alone would take 2 weeks. Eliza's heart sank. I can pay extra. Sit. Elena pointed to a workbench cluttered with masks in various stages of completion. Her studio, tucked away in Boston's North End, smelled of paint and metal polish. Tell me why this mask matters so much. Eliza perched on the edge of the bench. It's complicated. Life always is. Elena studied the design. This isn't a Halloween mask. This is armor. Is that bad? Depends on what you're fighting. Elena set down the tablet and picked up a measuring tape. Hold still. As the artisan took measurements of her face, Eliza noticed the photos lining the walls. Theater productions, masquerade balls, elaborate costumes. How long have you been making masks? 40 years. Started in Venice, learned from my father. Elena stepped back, scribbling numbers in a worn notebook. Each mask tells a story. What's yours? Eliza hesitated. High school reunion. Ah. Elena's knowing smile made Eliza uncomfortable. The worst battlefield of all. It's not like that. No? Elena raised an eyebrow. Then why design a mask that hides everything but your eyes? Eliza touched her braces self-consciously. Because I want people to see me differently. Or maybe, Elena sat down her notebook, you want to see them differently. The thought hadn't occurred to Eliza. What do you mean? Behind a mask, you're free to observe without fear, to judge those who judged you. Elena picked up a half-finished mask from her workbench. But be careful. Masks can become cages if you let them. Eliza watched as Elena began sketching modifications to her design. Can you really have it ready in 3 weeks? For the right story, I'll make it happen. Elena looked up. But first we need to talk about the eyes. What about them? They're the one part you can't hide. Are you ready for people to really see them? Eliza thought of John, of how he looked at her in the coffee shop, not with pity or judgment, but with genuine curiosity. Yes, she said finally. I think I am. Elena nodded, satisfied. Come back next week for a fitting. And Eliza? Yes? Bring a photo of the dress. The mask needs to complement, not compete. Walking back to her car, Eliza's phone buzzed. A text from John. Found the perfect restaurant for Thursday, casual enough. Attached was a photo of a cozy-looking trattoria. Eliza smiled despite herself. He was trying. Perfect, she wrote back. Just remember, no suits. I'll wear jeans, he responded immediately. Eliza paused, then added, the mask will be ready in time. His reply came quickly. Never doubted it. Neither had she really, but Elena's words echoed in her mind. Masks could become cages. The question was, who was she really trying to cage? Them or herself? John sat in his office late at night, staring at his computer screen. Eliza's published research papers filled his browser tabs. Studies on pediatric facial reconstruction, innovative surgical techniques, psychological impact assessments. Still here? His assistant Rachel appeared at the door. Just research. He quickly minimized the windows. On Dr. Chen again? Rachel set down a stack of contracts. You know, normal people just check Facebook. She's not on Facebook. He caught Rachel's knowing look. I mean, I assume she's not. Rachel leaned against his desk. Want to know what I found interesting? I'm sure you'll tell me. The children's hospital wing you funded last year. She works there, specifically in the craniofacial unit you paid for. John froze. What? You didn't know? Rachel pulled up the hospital's website. Dr. Eliza Chen, lead surgeon, Crawford Children's Surgical Center. They named it. You gave them $20 million, of course they named it. John leaned back, processing. Does she know that you're the donor? Probably not. You were pretty insistent about staying anonymous. He remembered why he'd hated the idea of publicity, of people praising him for simply writing a check. Now that decision felt different. His phone buzzed. Eliza. Need to reschedule Thursday, emergency surgery. Everything okay? He typed back. 6-year-old with facial trauma, could take hours. He glanced at the hospital website, at the surgical center bearing his name. Take all the time you need. Friday instead? Thanks for understanding. Friday works. John stared at the message, then at the hospital website. Rachel? Did I do the right thing staying anonymous? Rachel considered this. Depends. Are you hiding from recognition or avoiding connection? What's the difference? One's about humility, the other's about fear. His phone buzzed again. Eliza had sent a photo, the mask in progress, delicate metalwork beginning to take shape. It's beautiful, he wrote. It's getting there, she responded, like everything else. John looked at his browser tabs, her research, her accomplishments, the lives she'd changed. Lives made better in a center he'd funded without knowing she worked there. Rachel. Yes? Clear my schedule for Friday evening. Already done. She headed for the door, then paused. You know, sometimes the best connections are the ones we never planned for. After she left, John opened one of Eliza's research papers. The introduction read, In facial reconstruction, success is measured not by perfection, but by restoration of function and confidence. He thought about masks and money and all the ways people hide their true selves. Friday couldn't come soon enough. William Martinez sat at his desk at Valley High, where he now worked as vice principal, staring at his phone. The latest text from John glowed on the screen. Had to reschedule dinner, she's doing emergency surgery. Still playing Cupid? Principal Diana Chen, no relation to Eliza, asked from his doorway. Not exactly. William pocketed his phone. More like making amends. Diana entered, closing the door. This about the alumni ball? Sort of. He gestured to the chair across from him. You remember Eliza Chen, class of 15? The girl everyone, Diana trailed off. Yeah, her. What about her? William pulled up Eliza's hospital profile on his computer, turning the screen toward Diana. She's a pediatric surgeon now, reconstructive specialist. Diana leaned forward, reading. Impressive. But what's this got to do with you? I set her up with John Crawford for the ball. He waited for Diana's reaction. John Crawford? The tech millionaire? Diana frowned. Why? Because... William stood, pacing. Because I was the worst to her. Me and my friends, we made her life hell. That was 10 years ago. Exactly. 10 years I've carried this. He stopped at the window, looking out at the football field where so much of the bullying had happened. Did you know I've been tracking her career? That's concerning. Not like that. He turned back. I donate to her department anonymously. I read her research papers. He sank back into his chair. I'm trying to balance the scales. Diana was quiet for a moment. Does she know any of this? No, and she can't. Not yet. Why not? Because this isn't about me feeling better. He pulled up the alumni ball planning document. It's about giving her one perfect night, the one we tried to ruin at graduation. And John, he's different than he was back then. Focused, driven, like her. William managed a small smile. They had dinner last week. They're meeting again Friday. Diana stood. Just be careful, William. Playing with people's lives. It can backfire. I know, but you should see them together. They're both so... guarded. Real. He checked his phone again. No new messages. When they talk, they forget to pretend. Diana headed for the door, then paused. You know what the irony is? What? You're the one wearing the biggest mask of all. After she left, William opened his donation records. Next month's payment to the hospital was due, his personal penance paid in monthly installments. His phone buzzed. John. Found out something interesting about Eliza's hospital. William's heart stopped. What's that? I accidentally funded her department. Anonymous donation last year. William let out a breath. At least one secret was still safe. Funny how things work out, he typed back. But as he stared at his own donation records, he wondered if Diana was right. Maybe he was wearing the biggest mask of all. You can't wear that, Eliza stated flatly, looking at John's outfit through their video call. The ball was William Morrow, and they were doing final checks. What's wrong with it? John glanced down at his tuxedo. It's too... CEO. It's a ball, he protested. Everyone will be dressed up. Yes, but you look like you just stepped out of Forbes. She adjusted her laptop screen. The whole point is to blend in. Remember? John loosened his bow tie. Fine. What do you suggest? The charcoal suit you wore to dinner last week. Less Wall Street, more human. He disappeared from frame, returning moments later in the other suit. Better? Much. She held up her own garment bag. Want to see? Isn't that bad luck or something? That's weddings. She unzipped the bag, revealing a midnight blue gown. Simple, elegant, nothing flashy. It's perfect, he said quietly. Eliza quickly rezipped the bag. Elena's dropping off the mask tonight. Final fitting. Nervous about wearing a mask to hide from people who made my life miserable 10 years ago? She attempted a laugh. Why would I be nervous? John sat down closer to his camera. We can still back out. No, she was firm. I need to do this, just... She hesitated. Don't let go of my hand when we walk in. Promise. He checked his watch. Speaking of Elena, I should let you go. Right. Eliza reached for her laptop to end the call, then stopped. John? Yeah? Thank you for understanding. After the call ended, Eliza stared at her reflection in the dark laptop screen. Her phone buzzed. Elena, outside with your armor, warrior. Eliza took a deep breath and headed downstairs. William Morrow would change everything, one way or another. Across town, John changed back into normal clothes, his phone lighting up with a text from William. Everything ready? As ready as we'll ever be, he wrote back. Good luck, William responded. And John, take care of her. John looked at his reflection, adjusting his tie one last time. I will, he typed, meaning it more than he expected to. The Grand Plaza Hotel's ballroom sparkled with crystal chandeliers and polished marble. Eliza sat in John's car outside, her fingers tracing the edges of Elena's masterpiece, a mask of silver filigree and tiny crystals that caught the light like teardrops. Ready? John asked softly. No, she secured the mask, checking it in the visor mirror. But let's go anyway. They walked through the hotel lobby, her hand tight in his. A few early arrivals milled around, but no one seemed to recognize them. At the ballroom entrance, William waited with name tags and programs. John Crawford and... William's voice caught slightly. Guest? Eliza took her blank name tag without comment. John squeezed her hand. Inside, the room was half full. Eliza recognized faces she'd spent years trying to forget. Ashley Peters, who'd started the ugly duckling chants. Jason Roberts, who'd asked her to prom as a joke. They all looked older, normal, human. Drink, John offered. Please. As he headed to the bar, a voice behind her called out, John Crawford, no way. Eliza turned to see Jennifer Mills approaching, still beautiful, still commanding attention. She stopped short at seeing Eliza. And you are? Eliza smiled behind her mask. His date. Oh, Jennifer's eyes narrowed. Have we met? Something about you seems... I doubt it. Eliza's voice was calm, controlled. I'm not from around here. John returned with drinks. Jen, he nodded politely. How's LA? Oh my God, you have to hear about my new startup. Jennifer launched into a story, barely glancing at Eliza. Under her mask, Eliza watched, studied. These people who'd once seemed so powerful, so terrifying, now looked ordinary. Jen's laugh was a little too loud, her gestures a little too practiced. More classmates approached. John handled the introduction smoothly, never revealing Eliza's identity. She spoke when spoken to, her voice confident behind her shield of silver and crystal. You're in medicine? Someone asked. Surgery, she replied simply. How did you two meet? Medical technology conference, John answered, the practiced lie smooth. As the evening progressed, Eliza realized something strange. She wasn't afraid anymore. These people, her former tormentors, held no power over her. Their opinions meant nothing. Her phone buzzed, a message from Elena. How's the armor holding up? Eliza looked around the room at all the faces that had once haunted her dreams. I don't think I need it anymore, she typed back. Elena's response was immediate. Then it's doing exactly what it should. Eliza touched John's arm. Dance with me? He looked surprised, but pleased. Of course. As they moved to the music, she caught their reflection in the ballroom's mirrors. A successful man and a masked woman, both finally seeing clearly. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" "For letting me hide until I was ready not to." His hand tightened on her waist. "The night's not over yet." She smiled behind her mask. For the first time, she was looking forward to what came next. "So, mystery woman," Ashley Peters slid into the seat next to Eliza during dinner. "What's your secret?" "My secret? How'd you land John Crawford?" Ashley leaned closer, wine glass dangling from her fingers. "Half the girls here have been trying to get his attention all night." Eliza felt John tense beside her. "Maybe I just asked intelligent questions instead of throwing myself at him," she said mildly. A few seats away, someone choked on their drink. Ashley's smile tightened. "You know," Ashley continued, "your voice sounds so familiar. Did you go to Valley High?" "She went to boarding school," John cut in smoothly. "In Switzerland." "Really?" Ashley's eyes narrowed. "Yet you ended up at a medical conference together? How convenient." Eliza straightened in her chair. "Actually, John!" William's voice boomed across the table. "We need you for the alumni achievement photo." John squeezed Eliza's hand before standing. "Be right back." As soon as he left, Ashley pounced. "Seriously, who are you?" "Because I know every girl John dated in high school and you're not his usual type." Eliza took a sip of water, buying time. Through her mask, she studied Ashley, the slight crow's feet, the nervous way she kept touching her hair. What was his type? "You know, pretty, popular." Ashley's smile turned predatory. Normal. The word hung in the air between them. Eliza felt something shift inside her. Not anger, not fear, but a strange sort of pity. "Normal is overrated," she said quietly. "And you haven't changed at all, have you, Ashley?" Ashley's glass froze halfway to her lips. "What did you say?" Before Eliza could respond, John returned. "Everything okay here?" "Perfect." Eliza stood. "Ashley was just reminiscing about high school, weren't you?" Ashley stared at her, comprehension slowly dawning. "Wait, you're not... Dance?" Eliza turned to John, ignoring Ashley's sputtering. On the dance floor, John pulled her close. "You okay?" "Better than okay." Eliza watched Ashley whispering urgently to Jennifer Mills. "I think they're starting to figure it out." "Want to leave?" "No." She rested her head on his shoulder. "For the first time, I want to stay." Across the room, William watched them dance, a small smile playing on his lips. His phone buzzed. A notification from the hospital's donor portal. Monthly contribution received. He looked at Eliza, confident and graceful behind her mask, and John, who hadn't taken his eyes off her all night. Sometimes, he thought, redemption came in unexpected ways. The music changed to a slower song. Eliza and John kept dancing, oblivious to the whispers growing around them. The mask caught the light, throwing patterns across the floor like stars. "Is it true?" Jennifer Mills cornered Eliza by the restroom. "Are you really?" Eliza adjusted her mask. "Really what?" "Eliza Chen." Jennifer's voice dropped to a whisper. "Ashley swears it's you." The hallway suddenly felt too small. Eliza glanced toward the ballroom where John was talking with some former classmates. "Would it matter if I was?" Eliza asked. Jennifer had the grace to look uncomfortable. "Look, about high school." "Don't." Eliza held up a hand. "I'm not here for apologies." "Then why are you here?" Eliza considered the question. Through the mask, she studied Jennifer's face, the uncertainty in her eyes, the slight tremor in her hands. "Because I needed to see something," Eliza said finally. "What?" "That you're all just people. Not monsters, not gods. Just flawed, ordinary people who did cruel things as teenagers." Jennifer flinched. "We were kids." "Yes, we were." Eliza smoothed her dress. "And now we're adults, so let's act like it." She turned to leave, but Jennifer caught her arm. "Wait. I have a daughter." Eliza stopped. "Okay?" She's starting middle school next year, and I'm terrified, Jennifer's voice cracked. Terrified she'll be like me, or worse, that others will be like me was to her. Something in Eliza's chest loosened. What's her name? Lucy. If you're worried about Lucy, Eliza said carefully, then you're already a better person than you were at 17. Jennifer wiped her eyes. How can you be so calm about everything? Eliza touched her mask. Because I'm not hiding anymore. I'm choosing who sees me and how. The ballroom doors opened and John appeared. Everything okay here? Fine, Eliza said, meaning it. Jennifer was just telling me about her daughter. Ah. Understanding flickered across John's face. He offered his arm to Eliza. Ready to go back in? Actually. Eliza looked at Jennifer, then back at John. I think I'm ready for something else. She reached for the mask's fastening. Are you sure? John whispered. Eliza nodded. Some wounds need air to heal. With steady hands, she untied the ribbons holding Elena's creation in place. The mask came away slowly, revealing her face, braces, glasses and all, to Jennifer's wide-eyed gaze. Hello, Jen, Eliza said softly. It's been a while. The silence stretched between them like a bridge waiting to be crossed. Early Monday morning, 3 days after the ball, Eliza stood in the surgical prep room studying her patient scans. 6-year-old Emily Crawford, the emergency case from last week. No relation to John, she'd assumed. Dr. Chen, a nurse poked her head in. The uncle's here to sign the consent forms. Eliza nodded, not looking up. Send him in. Eliza? She froze at the familiar voice, turning slowly to find John standing in the doorway, looking decidedly un-CEO-like in rumpled clothes. You're Emily's uncle. Yeah. He ran a hand through his hair. I didn't know you were her surgeon until this morning. Eliza looked back at the scans. The complex facial fractures from a car accident, the delicate reconstruction needed. Why didn't you say anything? I didn't want you to feel pressured. He stepped closer, studying the images. Plus, I only found out recently that this is the surgical center I funded. Eliza's head snapped up. What? Anonymous donation last year. He met her eyes. I didn't know you worked here. The pieces clicked into place. The new equipment, the expanded program, the nameplate she passed every morning. Crawford Children's Surgical Center. Well, she managed. This is awkward. Eliza, I have to prep for surgery. She gathered her notes. The nurse will bring you the forms. Wait. He caught her arm gently. I trust you. Not because of the ball or our dinners or any of that. I trust you because I've read every paper you've published. I know how good you are. She stared at his hand on her arm. I won't mess this up. You won't. He released her. And Eliza, thank you for taking off the mask on Friday, for showing everyone who you really are. She thought of Jennifer's face, of the conversations that followed, of old wounds finally beginning to heal. Your niece, she said professionally, is in good hands. I know. He smiled. They're your hands. After he left, Eliza looked at Emily's scans again. On her phone, a message from Elena. How does it feel, warrior, being seen? Eliza touched her face. No mask, no hiding. Just a surgeon about to do what she did best. It feels right, she typed back. Then she went to scrub in. Uncle John? Emily's small voice was muffled by bandages. Will I look normal again? John looked up from his laptop where he'd been working remotely from the hospital room for the past 3 days. Eliza's surgery had been successful, but recovery would take time. Hey kiddo, you already look perfect to me. But the other kids will be jealous, he finished, moving to sit on her bed, because you're braver than all of them combined. A knock at the door interrupted them. Eliza entered, tablet in hand, her white coat crisp despite the late hour. How's my favorite patient? She asked, checking Emily's vitals. Dr. Chen makes me feel better, Emily told John. She has braces too. Eliza smiled, adjusting her glasses. That's right. And guess what? I got teased about them when I was young too. Really? Emily perked up. What did you do? I decided to become a doctor who fixes faces." Eliza sat on Emily's other side. "Because sometimes the strongest people are the ones who know what it's like to feel different." John watched them together, his niece, and the woman he'd been afraid to really see in high school. Eliza caught his gaze, and something unspoken passed between them. "Emily needs rest," Eliza stood, professional mask back in place. "We'll do another evaluation, Williamaro." "Dr. Chen?" Emily called as Eliza reached the door. "Will you tell me more stories, Williamaro, about being different?" Eliza paused, then turned back with a genuine smile. "I promise." After Emily fell asleep, John found Eliza in her office reviewing post-op notes. "Thank you," he said simply. She looked up. "For the surgery? For showing my niece that different can be beautiful?" Eliza sat down her pen. "You know, at the ball, when I took off the mask, I wasn't just showing everyone else. I was showing myself, too." "And what did you see?" "That the real me was always enough." She met his eyes. "I just needed the right people to see it." John stepped closer. "I see it now." "Better late than never," she said softly. They stayed like that, finally seeing each other clearly, no masks between them. "You don't have to do this," John said, watching Eliza arrange files on her desk. A week had passed since Emily's surgery. "Actually, I do." She held up an envelope. "The hospital board needs to meet their anonymous donor." She stood straightening her lab coat, and its namesake should see exactly what his money has built. They walked through the pediatric ward together. Eliza pointed out new equipment, introduced staff, showed him the waiting room where parents spent anxious hours. Each stop revealed another layer of the world she'd built here. "And this," she paused at a wall covered in children's artwork, "is our gallery of brave faces." John studied the drawings, self-portraits by patients, some pre-surgery, some after. In each one, the child had drawn themselves smiling. "Emily's will be up there soon," Eliza said softly. "She's already working on it." "I had no idea," John admitted, "when I made the donation." "You did more than help." She turned to face him. "You gave kids like me a chance to be seen differently, to see themselves differently." A nurse hurried up with charts requiring Eliza's signature. As she reviewed them, John watched her, confident, focused, completely in her element. "Dr. Chen?" a small voice called. They turned to see Emily walking slowly with her mother, her bandages smaller now, revealing healing skin beneath. "Look," Emily pointed to her progress chart. "2 more days until more bandages come off." Eliza knelt to her level. "And you're being super brave, just like we talked about." Emily nodded, then noticed John. "Uncle John, are you here to see Dr. Chen's special place too?" "Actually," Eliza answered, standing, "Uncle John helped build this special place." Emily's eyes widened. "Really?" "Really," John said. "But Dr. Chen made it amazing." "Like a team?" Emily asked. Eliza and John exchanged glances. "Yeah," Eliza said softly, "like a team." After Emily left for her physical therapy, they stood in comfortable silence, watching the busy hallway. "You know," John said finally, "teams usually get coffee together." Eliza raised an eyebrow. "Is that your subtle way of asking me out again? This time without practice runs or masks?" She pretended to consider it. "I suppose I could pencil you in, but John?" "Yeah? I still take my coffee black." He smiled. "I remember." William Martinez sat in his office at Valley High, staring at his phone. On the screen was a photo Eliza had posted on the hospital's professional network. Emily Crawford, bandages removed, smiling beside Dr. Chen and her uncle. "The donor finally confessed?" Diana asked from the doorway. "About what?" "Your monthly donations to her department." William pocketed his phone. "Not yet." "When?" "Soon." He stood gathering his things. "But not today." At the hospital, Eliza was finishing her rounds when John appeared with 2 coffee cups. "Still black." He offered her one. "Still perfect." She took a sip. "Emily's discharge papers are ready." "That's actually why I'm here." He shifted uncomfortably. She wants you to come to her welcome home party. Just as her doctor, he added quickly. No pressure. Eliza studied him over her coffee. And if I wanted to come as something else? Like what? Like someone who's finally ready to stop practicing and start living. John set down his cup. I'd say it's about time. From the nurse's station, William watched unseen. His phone buzzed, a message from the hospital's donation system. Monthly contribution processed. He smiled, typed a quick response, and left quietly. Some masks, he decided, could stay on a little longer. Eliza and John stood in the hospital corridor, coffee forgotten between them, planning a future neither had expected. Behind them, Emily's artwork hung on the wall of brave faces, a drawing of herself, her uncle, and her doctor, all smiling without masks. Sometimes the best stories, William thought as he drove away, were the ones that wrote themselves. The Crawford Children's Surgical Center's annual fundraiser was in full swing. Eliza stood at the podium, addressing the crowd of donors and medical staff. A year ago, this center was a place of healing. Today, it's become something more, a place of transformation. In the audience, John sat beside Emily, now fully recovered and proudly showing off her science fair medal. Next to them, William Martinez shifted nervously in his chair. We've had 2 anonymous donors who have supported us from the beginning, Eliza continued. One revealed himself last year. She smiled at John. The other has remained unknown, making monthly contributions that have helped countless children. William gripped his chair's armrest. Today, that second donor approached me. Eliza's voice softened. And like many things in life, it turned out to be someone who was there all along, trying to make amends in his own way. She gestured to William, who stood slowly. The audience applauded, but he only saw Eliza's face, understanding, forgiveness, and something like peace. After the ceremony, they gathered in Eliza's office. John, William, and Eliza. On her desk sat Elena's mask, now a piece of art rather than armor. 10 years of donations, Eliza said to William. Why didn't you tell me? Because it wasn't about me, William replied. It was about making things right. By playing matchmaker? John asked, amused. That part was unplanned. William smiled. But sometimes the best healing comes from unexpected places. Eliza picked up the mask, its silver filigree catching the light. Speaking of healing, Elena asked if she could display this in her studio, as a reminder that some masks are meant to be temporary. What did you tell her? John asked. I said yes. Eliza set the mask down. I don't need it anymore. Outside her office window, the hospital bustled with life. Emily's artwork still hung on the wall of brave faces, joined now by dozens more, each one telling a story of transformation, of healing, of faces finally seen clearly. Dinner, John suggested. Black coffee after, Eliza smiled. William watched them leave, then pulled out his phone. The hospital's donation portal glowed on the screen. His finger hovered over the Reveal Donor button before pressing it firmly. Some masks, he decided, had served their purpose long enough.